Hey listeners, this is Jay. I got some exciting news to share. If you're interested in reaching out to other professionals or highlighting your product, well, this is for you. We are offering a variety of sponsorship opportunities for future podcasts, as well as the upcoming 2025 National Parks and Recreation Association Conference that's taking place in Orlando. Reach out to us at recklesspod@gmail.com if you're interested. Make sure you follow us on social media, keep up with all the news and updated episodes, and hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to Season 4 of RecLess, the podcast expanding your knowledge and making you smarter about the field of parks and recreation. Your hosts are Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from around the country, bringing insights, industry stories, and a surprise guest each episode. Thanks for swinging by. We're glad you're here. This is RecLess.
Hey Jay.
What's up? What's up?
Nothing. Just getting Shane in here too. Shane, you good?
I am. Tom Haverford.
Tom Haverford.
Is that someone I should know?
Yes.
Someone you won't know, but you know why you should know him.
I guess I got Google at my hands again. I've seen him before. I never knew his name.
Here's what's funny about this. I know that Tom hasn't listened to the Bentley episode yet. Have you?
The Stephen Bentley episode?
Yeah.
No. What happened? What did we do?
I convinced Hannah to do some creative editing, and it sounds like you thought the planner was the public works director, not me.
What?
Yeah, it's great. So it makes it look like I was right, you were wrong.
You're joking.
No, she's great. Listen, you know how they say AI, you can like make people say things? She's getting really good. I'm gonna have to start being careful.
I just want to know why. Why? I mean, that was funny.
I asked Hannah if we could fuck with you, and Hannah thought you'd catch it on quality control. And I was like, if he gets through quality control and he doesn't catch it, it stays. And she was like, he'll catch it. And obviously you weren't able to listen to the episode. And Melissa listened to quality control, but didn't know the context, right? So she just assumed I was right and you were wrong. And then I guess Bentley, what's funny is I think Bentley listened to it because he posted about it on LinkedIn, but he didn't say, oh, that opening was different than I thought. So yeah, you'll have to go back and listen. It's all in there. You were wrong. I was right.
I listened to it, but I didn't even catch
it. She's good, man.
Yeah, I guess so.
Be careful. Don't woman scorn Hannah. She'll get you. Not that you had done anything, but I'm just saying. Be forewarned.
Yeah, I see how it works. You got the home team.
Stand on your toes.
We're just the away team, and
that's right. That's right.
All right. Well, you guys ready to get going?
Let's do it.
Do it.
Okay.
Tom Haverford. He was the public works director, right?
I don't even know what his actual title was, so we're not going to get into that right now.
I think he did rentals, right? I think he did like rental stuff.
He was just there. He didn't want to be there.
Yeah, he didn't.
He did not want to be there. Welcome to RecLess, everyone. We are now in episode 15 of season 4, which is our 75th episode. So it's another
NRPA number.
Yes, that is our NRPA number, 75 lessons learned from the RecLess podcast. So welcome to the RecLess podcast. If we take you on our journey of knowledge with the field of Parks and Rec, and of course food and sports. I think we have to basically be honest with our fans that this is not just a Parks and Rec podcast anymore.
I'm going to make sure I don't ask any questions today about food or sports or anything other than Park and Rec.
There we go. We're taking it back, Jay.
Oh, that's boring. I don't want to be a part of this podcast. How you guys doing today?
Good, man. It's been a long week.
Good.
I am Tom Venniro, and with me, as always, Jay Tryon and Shane Mize. I think that was supposed to come before I asked you how you were doing.
But I've affected you in such a way.
The Shane effect is in full force. Our guests today, we usually don't announce them at the beginning which we are not going to do either way, but our guest has the pseudo name Tom Haverford. Once again, a Parks and Rec character. Once again, Jay had no clue and had to Google this character prior to us starting.
And you said Tom Haverford didn't want to be in the episode. Is that meaning this guest doesn't want to be here? Like,
I
did
don't
they owe you something? Was there some sort of
comment. I don't want to comment to the actual parallels between the guest and Tom Haverford. I don't believe that would do our guest justice. But as I recall, at this point, we have had on our podcast Ron Swanson,
Mhm.
the real Leslie Knope, maybe a couple Leslie Nopes.
Couple Leslie Nopes, I think.
Now Tom Haverford. We've had, I believe, John Ralphio
Yeah,
at one
right.
point, and Mark Brandanowitz. So we've had 5, and I just found out that although Shane thought Mark Brandanowitz was a totally different title, and I knew the correct title, that
Hannah
on
edit this.
one of our last episodes with Stephen Bentley, I'm getting it out there for the record, that Hannah did some creative editing to make it sound like Shane knew who that was, and I did not. So for the record, I was right. Shane was wrong. Don't believe. Now you can't believe anything that's on this podcast because apparently
No one's going to have a difficulty believing I was wrong on this podcast. That's for
the
sure.
Mize team will edit whatever they want without letting us know. So anyway, all right, guys. So before we get into it, I do want to mention that we have, as a family of podcasts here, one of our extended family members and team members, Hannah Mize, had experienced a pretty great loss with the passing of her father a week ago. And so our thoughts are with Hannah, the family, with you, Shane, as well. And I know it's been a very difficult week. Hannah comes from a very large family. So, getting everybody together and to, honor, recognize someone's life, but also grieve is obviously a challenge and something that none of us wish the rest of us have to go through as we navigate life.
Yeah,
So,
that's, Glenn Nix, Hannah's dad, was an incredible man. And, I'm not convinced the world isn't just a little bit worse off without Glenn here. He was a great family man, raised 8 kids. Hannah's the oldest of 8. 2, Becca and Esther listened to us a lot, had talked to me a couple times this week when I've been grieving with them and fellowshipping with them as we have looked back on the legacy of Glenn. And they've even talked to me different things about the podcast. And so podcast has had an impact, and especially on Hannah and her family. And, it's been a long week, but, I think it's also important that all of us know that, when people grieve, that, this world keeps turning. Sun comes up every morning, and that is in a lot of ways hope and comfort, right? That there's a new day for those of us that are still up on this side and are to make hay while you can. And so we didn't want to cut the podcast off this week. I'm glad that y'all are able to continue on. I was able to come back in for it, and we're looking forward to having a good conversation today.
well, I appreciate that, Shane. Thank you for, honoring Glenn's legacy and sharing all that with us and our guest and, of course, our listeners. And so our opening question today is going to be a little deeper, a little more on the somber side, but it's a part of life, as you mentioned, right? The sun comes up the next day, unless you're in Rochester when it rains 21 days out of 28 in May. Other than that, each new day does come. And as time passes, obviously, we have to work through those challenges and those losses. So what I'd like to pose to you all, and I know now with of course, Hannah's current situation, and I know there was, a health scare with Hannah, and then Jay, your sister-in-law, a very tough situation that you've had to grieve through. My father passed before the podcast, but not too much before that. So we've all experienced loss or health concerns in recent years. We're all getting older. That's something we're all going to experience. And we all probably at one point or another felt this almost feeling of invincibility where you just didn't feel like that was a part of regular life. And so I know I did. We talk about work-life balance a lot. We also talked in one of our last episodes about our 3 rules, and I believe it was Jay who one of his rules was about, knowing what's important, right? And being able to be present for those individuals and those moments in your family.
And that
When
kind of it impacted because of some of the stuff that had happened recently around his side of the family.
Oh, 100%. That was definitely an eye-opening experience to go through and then kind of prioritize things with a different focus.
Yeah.
So yeah, my question for you both is to offer a piece of advice for the people in our field specifically. And I mean, it would be general, it would probably extend to everybody, but I do know that in our field there is I think an unknown sense of urgency and priority with this job. There's always something going on. We've talked about this before. As much as a lot of individuals out there that are not in the industries like to look at our profession and maybe with some envy and, of course, jealousy because we get to do the fun and provide those experiences and those why moments, right? At the same time, there's the dark side, right? Where we feel, especially in a higher end position, that we're always on call, that there's always something that needs our attention. But then we have times like this. So when you go through times like this, what kind of advice would you offer individuals who feel that they may be letting their job down? Maybe they have a lot of responsibilities. Think about the timing right now, right? You're talking about May. This is the busiest time for every one of our departments because they're either if you're if you're in the south or in areas that have warmer climates, you're really already in the thick of it. If you're in my position, you are planning feverishly for those really nice, the nicer weather where it starts to ramp up. It's a challenge. I remember that. I remember the feeling of guilt almost of, how do I pull away? I need this time for me. I need to reflect, but you can't plan around this. This isn't a vacation. This isn't something where all of a sudden you could say, okay, I'm going to be out in a month. Everybody, this is what we need to have in place so that we're in good shape and that, you don't have to call on me, right? We can plan for a vacation, but we can't plan for this. So, if you'd be willing to indulge, what's a piece of advice you would give to someone in that situation in our field that experiences either a health issue or sudden loss that helped you maybe get through it, or maybe if it was on the other side, on the back end, where you realized what you needed or what you could do that helped the situation?
Glenn's funeral Saturday, and it's going to be a very interesting. Cisco is a small town, a couple thousand people live there, and at times there's probably people that are within the poverty line that are going to be at this funeral. That live a very conservative life or whatever. And he worked for the Wilkes family, who are a couple of, I'm not lying, billionaires, and they could potentially be in that same room, right? And so at some point, I think a lot about legacies, and I talk about legacy and impact, and the impact that we've had in this industry, and the impact I've had on the communities I've lived in. And Simon Sinek one time talked about how there were two guys that chopped wood, and one guy chopped wood for 8 hours straight. And one guy chopped wood and he would take an hour break and he would come back and start chopping wood again. And the other guy feverishly chopped wood through breaks, through lunch, didn't take any rest. And at the end of every day, he would actually cut down less wood than the guy that took the break. And after a week or two, he was like, what the fuck's going on? Why are you chopping more wood than me? And he goes, oh, I go home every day, take a break and sharpen my blade. I resharpen my blade. And I think we're all like-minded in this. I want to have a legacy. I want to have an impact. I don't want to spend whatever time here on earth and not have made an impact in people's lives. Family, I want my kids to have learned lessons from me. I want the communities to have seen my impact. I want the industry to have known that at one time I was in this industry, and I want, the other people that are in my life to have been impacted by me. But you have to be at your best. You can't be at a suboptimal level. And so I do think at times you have to take breaks. I think you have to find work-life balance. Now, it may look different for Jay than it does me right now, but whatever time it takes for me to sharpen my blade, my axe, that needs to happen. Or when I'm coming back, or if I never sharpen it, it just gets duller and duller. And your ability to make that impact gets lesser and lesser. And, as Glenn's impact is on full display Saturday, where the church will be packed. They're talking about capacity numbers because how many people are going to come in, because he was a pillar of his community and his church and the area. Glenn took moments to refix, to sharpen his axe. And I think we all have to. Like, I don't think you can do any job, anything feverishly and be as sharp as possible. I think when the opportunities present themselves, you do need to resharpen.
I'm like torn on going two different directions with this question. So from the work perspective, you asked about like, is there a tip or, advice to give to like kind of prepare? And I'm not going to compare the situation I'm going to mention to what Hannah's going through or what you're going through, Shane, with work. But I had a situation last year where I had two of my key staff members go on maternity and paternity leave at the same time. So just kind of going back to what you said, Tom, with, it's busy season, it's, getting ready for summer camp, getting ready for pools to open. Like, I guess the one thing I'll say from a work perspective that I think is important for us, that we cross train more often. We talk about making sure that not everyone is the only person that can do a certain task, because, we had two major events that took place last year when I had my two staff that were on leave for having their children. And, I had other staff that picked up the slack and they were able to do things. And we trained about that. We talked about that in advance. You can't always know when something's going to happen to train in advance. But if you start training now for the future, then it helps that situation. On the completely other spectrum, it's like so interesting that you brought up this question today. And I know we don't talk about music very often. We talk about food, we talk about sports and other things.
We're not a music podcast for sure.
But yeah. I'm, of the three of us, I'm obviously probably the most passionate about music. And it's really interesting that you kind of posed this question today. I'm driving home to get on this podcast today, and I'm listening to a song by Ben Rector. You guys probably have not heard of him, I'm guessing.
I have.
Okay, cool. So the name of the song is the Richest Man in the World. Okay, so just the premise of the song, and maybe you guys go back and look it up, or listeners can go look it up. And ultimately, it asked you like, hey, when your time comes and your day is up, what are you going to say, or what are you faced with to think of from the reflection of your life? And he talks about in this song, like, I'm not going to own a jet. I'm not going to be the richest man in the world, but the richest man to me, of like what he is saying is being the father to my children, being with my wife, and those experiences. And I think that's what's really important. I think, Shane can, there's so many different types of legacies that can be made from someone's life. And kind of diving back into what I said last week, into the three rules of that, like prioritization of like, what do you want to prioritize in your life? And that can go back to this reflection of that song, like Richest Man in the World, to kind of think about like, okay, like what is making you a rich person? It may not be the monetary value that you think of when you hear the name, the term rich. So I guess that is something that people can reflect on and think of what they want to be known for from a legacy, or, what does make you feel rich? And it maybe in some cases it could be money, but it doesn't have to be, and it can be so many different things.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, and this isn't necessarily what my advice or what my perspective would have been, but piggybacking off of what you both said and trying to kind of tie in a little bit. I had this gentleman that's a historical society member. His name's John Foster. He's an attorney, and we were in the hallway one day with my wife came to pick up the kids, and I think I've shared this before, but our daycare is in the same building as it's in the community center that I work. Very fortunate to have that opportunity. Not everybody does. And some days, if I have to work a little later, Melissa will come pick up the kids. And particularly on Wednesdays, the Historical Society meets and they do their thing at the end of the night. And he had saw me out in the hallway with my kids and my wife. And I sent them on their way home. And I was waiting to be a part of a meeting. And he pulled me aside. He goes, "Guys, you're a real rich man." And I said, I kind of, it took me a minute to understand what he was saying, but that's exactly what he meant. Jay was just, he looked at the family and what I had and where I was in life. And that's what a wonderful thing to say to someone, right? And to put perspective. To the point of what we were talking about in terms of, Shane, you had mentioned how the sun comes up, another day goes, right? And that's the truth. And I've had another individual in my career tell me that you're going to do great things. You might have a legacy, but the moment you retire or step away, it's going to keep going. It's going to continue. What you did before that should impact or hopefully add some direction to that, and other people are going to come and do things their way. However, that position is going to be filled. Someone's going to be sitting in that chair. And so you look at it from a perspective of, okay, so what does that mean? How does that make you feel that you can be somewhat replaceable, right? When I think that's a hard concept for some of us to come to terms with. And the humble piece of that is absolutely right. There's people who will come in and step in and do our job really, really well. So for me, when I was going through it and with my father, I think everybody grieves differently. You said that, Shane. The amount of time that I took is going to be different for the amount of time that someone else needs to take, and I get that. But what I learned from that was, even if you didn't have the cross training that Jay had mentioned before, lean on the people that are around you. That's your friends, your family, and also the people that you work with. If you treat those people the right way and you have a culture in there, they will understand, they will pick up for you, and they'll have it ready when you get back. That's what I learned from that experience for me is the amount of support that was there. Even though initially I kind of felt guilty to an extent of, well, I have to walk away right now, and it didn't matter. None of it mattered. And as much as we really focus on the great work that we do, someone else also told me that it's going to be there when you return. It's going to be there when you return. It's not going anywhere. Yes, we have deadlines, of course, right? And hey, if you don't make a deadline once in a while, hopefully you're not getting fired. But typically, it's not the end of the world. The work will be there when you get back. Take the time you need and lean on the individuals that you have as a part of your support system through the entire part of it, whether it's, again, the family, the friends, and the individuals that you work with. And then, my last thought on that, too, is find vices to help you go through it. And Jay, you mentioned music, right? That could be something for someone, is that just you're using music to help yourself get through it, or whatever it is, to bond and come together to try to, again, ease the grief, ease the pain that you're experiencing, and ultimately celebrate what it is that you're going through, or the loss or the challenge, and overcome. So I really appreciate you both sharing some insight here. I hope that everybody doesn't have to experience these types of things on a regular basis, but it is absolutely a part of life and intertwines with what we do every day at our jobs. So with that, let's get into our guest. Last week we had Stacy Anaya, and one of the really, really, I think, unique parts of our podcast is that if we're alternating, or I have two in a row and then Jay goes, or whatever it is, I don't know who that's going to be before or after, right? So we got another Texan.
Hey, let's go.
We got another Texan, back-to-back Texans. Texans may be on the leaderboard at this point. I'm not sure. We'd have to go back and look.
As it should.
There's definitely, there's been quite a few.
Let's get into some of these clues and highlights of our guest. Our guest is one of the inaugural 30 under 30 NRPA recipients. Okay, so a little bit of a clue for you.
4 or 5 years ago now, I guess. Beanstein's had that for a while, right?
Yeah, so
4?
let's say there's 4. There's at least 120 of them out there, right? But
yeah,
so don't go back and look at the first one, all right, guys? I don't want you to narrow that pool down. Don't
pull my magazine
put
out.
your Google away. Our guest, and I thought about asking this as an opening question too, what's some kind, I think we had something like this before, but shared with me that they are a low-key pool shark on the billiards table.
Okay.
Doesn't bust it out all the time, but if it's happening, now we know.
That's good for me to know.
Yes.
If I run into him somewhere, I'm not playing him. I'm not going to get hustled.
All right. This guest currently works in an organization that one of our hosts previously spent time in. I mean, being that it's Texas, I would assume that may be Shane, but it could be Jay. I'm not going to confirm nor deny.
That would be cool if it was not Shane, because it's possible that the person came from
Mecklenburg.
somewhere else.
Yeah. All right. We consider our YPN group the YPM fam, right? I've just learned that this individual considers themselves a YPM gang member. So the terminology is a little different than what we call ours.
I might know who this is.
They are the current. Go ahead, Jay. You got something?
Theirs sounds more fun than us.
They are the current co-chair of the awards and scholarship committee at NRPA.
Yeah, I
A
know who this is.
devoted and often heartbroken Everton Football Club diehard fan. Now, I don't know anything about Everton, but I'm pretty sure Shane does, and he
Yep.
seems to be on the right track. They are a
Yeah.
2024 Academy externship recipient.
Yep.
That should help narrow it down to 4 people last year, if you could remember. Our guest is Shane.
Initials. Yeah.
Our guest. Shane just said MP. Our guest is the current district superintendent for Fort Worth Parks and Recreation. One of the coolest, smoothest names that you will ever say. Our guest today, please welcome Maxime Pierre.
What's up?
What's going on, guys? How are you guys doing?
How you doing, man?
Doing good, doing good. Happy Friday. That was a fantastic introduction. Thank you, Tom. But
Gangster.
first section of the podcast was absolutely amazing. I was like taking a couple of notes just on some of the things you guys were saying. It was fantastic.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. That's a little deeper than we usually go. It's so
Most people don't think anything we say is fantastic, so it's nice to hear.
I want to know how many people are in this gang.
I bet we can pick some of the names, right?
So
Absolutely. It's growing.
Let's start there. Let's start
That's
there
awesome.
with the YPN gang. We have
Katie
talked
Mack,
about this.
Molly, Cassie.
We recently talked about how Cindy Sullivan, they have their group, whatever they call that group, right? And it's just been going for generations. You find these groups at these, I think Parks and Rec. I'm not sure if it seems unique to Parks and Rec. And, we have our YPN fam. Mm-hmm. And now I know of the YPN gang.
Love that.
We talked a little bit about that at our conference in
we had
Atlanta
a chance.
Maxime.
We had a chance to do something so cool, and we just called ours fam. So disappointing. Disappointing.
I guess that's a little flat, but so Maxime, when we were gearing up for the podcast, you and I had talked a little bit about this, and just some context, and I'll let you take it over from here. We had noticed last year that there was this group of the current YPNers, and they seemed thick as thieves, super close, amazing camaraderie. When we would go and enter, there's an energy. You enter in a room where 5, 6, 7 of you were happening to be at the same time, and it just puts a smile on your face. Which, Maxime, you're always smiling, so you do that and brighten up a room yourself. Now, I asked you about your story of getting involved with that group, and your story actually is kind of like mine. It's just different direction after the start, but the start is very similar. You had somewhat of a position with YPN as in the legislative piece, right? And
yes,
there wasn't, maybe you would explain it. There wasn't as much that you thought maybe, like, that's how I was. Remember, Shane, it was what was it? The legislative forum. And I was like, I'm not doing anything for you all. I really don't know what value I'm, but either way. And you had that position. Tell us a little bit about that and your journey and how the YPN gang right now has kind of evolved to what it is, what it means, what you guys are all about, and even to the point of how cool it is. You guys did something that we never did, and that was get a Airbnb and have your own little spot during an NRPA conference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it even starts a little bit before the initial getting into YPN, and it starts with what was it? 5 years ago, Nashville conference. At that point, going to conference, so my first time going to conference, I had only known Kimberly Zigma, one of my best homies, good friends, awesome gang member. And through her, I got the introduction of Tabitha and Katie and Molly and Cassie. It's really funny, over time, where I have to think back, how did we all meet? It just seems like we've always been together as a group of friends to be able to lean on professionally and personally. But through those connections, it was just oh, this person's cool. Do you want to help out in any way? And I was just I don't know anything about YPN, but I know you guys are in it and you guys are cool. And I've been able to meet you. So any way I could help, please let me know. I ended up not really having to do anything because they forgot they had even given me that title, but it ended up being great just with YPN. And I like, and thinking about gangs and whatever, just groups in that way. I liken it to the YPN gang because I think about the Hells Angels, and I don't know if anyone's ever read the autobiography about the Hells Angels and how it started. It's really fascinating stuff. But I think it is interesting when you have these groups that start and then they just grow. You can go to Japan and there's a Hells Angels charter there, right? And I feel anywhere you go to any state and you connected with another person who's really interested or been a part of YPN or connected to someone you know. And it feels like there's a core group that existed before us. That was you guys. And there, because it had to start from somewhere, and I think it's continued to branch on, and I think it evolves, and we're taking it. I feel like it's our era. You guys are kind of like, in my view, like you guys are like the Michael Jordan era. We're like the LeBron-ish era, and then it's like younger individuals who are just like, okay, they're gonna be like, this is like the Ant Edwards era. Like, it's all still the same industry, but we've just kind of styled it and kind of fit it into our personality, kind of like our time. And it's grown to be something that's been really beautiful and great professionally and everything beyond it. And now it is a thing where people just always know that we're together. They see us together. And I think it's over time, it's allowed things to be less intimidating for all of us, especially at the start. Going to conference by myself for the first time was just kind of like, all right, I was going with some coworkers, but they had all already been. And this was when I was working in Arkansas at the time. So it's just like they had all these other connections with people elsewhere. And I moved around a little bit. So it was cool to be like, oh, I'll be able to meet some people that I used to work with. But I was just like, but for my individuals that I'm going to go and feel comfortable talking with at the socials and X, Y, and Z. And we have this great group that I think we permeate good energy and it gravitates people in. It gives me confidence when I'm around them. I believe so much in synergy and roles and like with like my staff and teams and friendship groups, like, like everyone having a really good vibe and being able to like really get along. And like that brings us all up, I feel. And that's when I've been able to find with that group, like individuals to kind of even like compete against, but in a positive way. If I'm pushing you to do better, that means you're doing something greater for your community, and you're pushing me to be better, and I'm doing the same. So all the all the outputs and outcomes are awesome. And then we still get to be competitive, do great stuff, and lean on one another. So, yeah.
That's great. That's great. And I thought you were going to say you guys are, when you said you guys are like I thought you were going to say you guys are just old. And so I appreciate you being real.
I'll take Michael Jordan. He could have called us a lot older.
A lot different. And
Bob Cousy.
I just add one piece before you get into another question here from Shane. I believe looked like he was ready. A lot of lessons you just kind of gave out there, but one that I just really picked up on is that comfortability of finding that group, especially younger in your career, and you're in an intimidating. I just had a conversation with individuals who were trying to send. We are trying to send professionals to NRPA from our region, and you would think that they'd be knocking down the door. And I believe from getting some feedback that a lot of it has to do with the intimidation factor. It's not a local conference. It's not a state conference where you're going to be walking around in a pocket of the individuals, either from your organization or neighboring organizations. You're going to go there and you're likely going to have a small percentage of individuals that are in that pocket, if any. Jordy Emmanuel, you know Jordy, right?
That's my homie. Love Jordy.
Jordy's awesome. Yeah, Jordy's awesome. And Jordy went to his first conference 2 years ago. And where were we 2 years ago? Before Atlanta?
Dallas.
Phoenix?
In Dallas. All right, and Jordy was there with one of his coworkers or two of his coworkers, and I, he was paired with me in the mentor program, and I just kept telling him, like, if there's anything you do, get your way to the NRPA conference, get there, get involved with YPN. I don't know if he listened to me or he's got a great influence close to him in Molly Keys as well, so he's got some individuals. But what I noticed this past year, his second time, right? So he got hooked on the first year. I'm sure it's because of a lot of his experiences with who he met at YPN in Dallas. I walked into those rooms and there was Jordy, like he was there. And that's, again, someone who was his second year. You could just see how comfortable he was and confident because he had the gang with him. So pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. I always say it's tough to evaluate something when you're standing on top of it. And I think in a lot of ways, I can start to see the impact of the YPN on the industry. What I haven't been able to see until this group, Max's group, came in, is how people view us when we walk into a space, our YPN fam. Because everything Max described is exactly what I feel. I feel like, first of all, I feel like I've got a close group of people that care about me and I care about them. We're excited to see each other. Yeah, I do.
Or Beyonce, which one?
That's right. That's Man, if I could get the Jordan to stick, Max, I mistakenly called myself Beyonce the last episode. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to outlive it. But So now I'm
not
gonna
gonna
start
forget
calling
it.
myself Jordan, see if it sticks. But
He
I think
just so you know, Max, he pretty much called Tom and I Destiny's Child. So like the
Okay, but
remaining
he was the
members,
lead.
I was
like
trying to
Yes,
break away.
he's
he's
he's breaking
Beyonce and we're
off.
the other ones.
Yeah.
I was trying to break away. I haven't always had a good understanding of how others probably felt when our YPN fan walks into a room, walks into a space when we hit conference. But what is unique about what Max just said and what I've experienced when that group, that Molly and Maria and Tabitha and Katie Mack and all those, when y'all's group shows up in force, you feel them. You feel
Oh
their
yeah.
swagger. You feel their confidence. You feel how close knit they are. And so I think it's very cool that that may be how we're also perceived or were perceived at one time when we were younger in our career walking into spaces. So what a great perspective, because I've never really completely been able to grasp maybe are they just putting up with us or are they happy to see us? But I love to see this group, Max's group. So hopefully people feel that way about us as well, and that maybe we swaggered into a space and had some confidence.
No, we
What
absolutely do. We absolutely do. I mean, it's so like funny now just to look at like the course of the last couple of years, or even just like after college or where my career's gone. Like I had like a list of different like professionals and stuff across the country where because like for me, I was just like, okay, now I'm in this. Like, who are some of the amazing individuals in this industry? And like trying to be like, what did they do? Where was their career tracks? What did they look like? And then being able to go to conference and seeing someone or being like, man, I might be nervous to talk to him. Does someone I know maybe know, or do I feel comfortable? Is the energy right? And everything just going to like think about what we do. What's something super important? It's inclusion. It's bringing people in. We do that for the communities, everybody, but we do it amongst ourselves as well. And I think with like the YPN fam, you guys have been great with like not trying to stymie the young professionals that are trying to come up. You're trying to help and support them in great ways. And we want to do the same thing. You know I have a giant personality. Like I know I'm an extrovert, and I know a lot of people are introverts who still love what they do in our industry. So when we go to conference and what has been fun over the last couple of years, I love going to like all the young socials and just talking to all the peeps. What advice do you need? Who do you want to connect to?
Yeah.
Who do you want to meet? Do you don't know Shane? Do you want to meet Shane? Let's go. Like being able to do those things, it feels so good. It feels so good.
How disappointed do you want to be? Do you want to meet Shane in person? Do you really? Well, and what I think is cool about the YPN, the one I didn't see it at the time. It's a very unique byproduct. Tom, last episode, we talked about LDN a little bit. You talked about the Leadership Development Network. Tom could be in that again. Tom could be in the Leadership Development Network. He could see it start to falter, and he could come back in and save it. And he could do that 2 or 3 times in his career, because you can be a quote unquote leader all the way through your 50s or 60s and be in this career in your 50s and 60s. But what I didn't realize at first, but what I've grown fascinated by as a little petri dish that is the YPN is that we can't save it. The Michael Jordan, right? I'm going to keep trying to call myself that. The Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas, Patrick Ewing, that heyday, right? The Reggie Miller, the ones that we kind of probably grew up with watching that type of basketball, they can't save new basketball. LeBron has to come in and make it relevant again. And this Oklahoma City team's got a chock full of players that have to go save it, and Anthony Edwards has to save it, and this Halliburton kid's got to save it. That's what's really cool about the YPN. And what I wanted to ask you, Max, is at some point you walk into something, no matter how hallowed or not you had a perspective of it, and you have to say, well, but I don't think it's going in the right direction now, or I don't think it's serving the current need, right? Like you can be awed by the old Celtics or the old Bulls or whatever you want to say, but at some point, that's not how I'm going to play basketball anymore. That's not how we're going to style this. And so what has it been like going into a space, hearing about the YPN, maybe having some reverence for it, and then saying, no, we're going to change some stuff? Because what's really cool is I can't dip back into the YPN. I cannot dip into the mentorship network or the admin network. I can do all those things. I can go back in and remake it feel like me, but the YPN will be whatever it's going to be for that group. And at some point you're going to age out and someone else is going to change it. And it almost has this constant refresh that no other network gets because it's for them by them, which I love.
I think it's incredible. It's just like this, yeah, this constantly improving living amoeba. It's its own thing. Seeing it from the outside, then being able to kind of dive into it and the connections I've been able to have with it. I think your analogy is perfect. It's just like, okay, I can watch clips of Bob Cousy doing what he's doing, winning championships, X, Y, and Z. That's really cool. But you're dribbling with one hand and you still have like a part-time job.
Right.
I can dribble with two hands. We're doing a little bit different stuff these days. But again, I think in it being a living thing, what we're doing and what's been done now is what fits right now. It's not going to fit later. And I want individuals to look at what's been done and be like, yeah, but let's do something else, and feel free to do so. I think oftentimes individuals, and we see this all the time in local government, we've always done it this way. Let's just maintain the status quo. And why? No. Absolutely not. And what you've seen with like the YPN chairs and all the individuals who are involved with it, it keeps on being all these incredible individuals, and they're going to keep on elevating it. I think you look at it in the beginning point, from the outside looking in, being like, how could I even with any of these individuals, then being able to be around them and being like, wow, I do have input that's necessary. And there's things you're able to learn. And then now in a couple of years, when I'm able to age out and look at others, I'm going to be super excited just to see like what other things that they do. I don't care if you change something that, one of my friends or I was like, hey, what about this? It's just like, yeah, change it, make it your own, make it right for you. What's good, right, like today might be completely not what fits tomorrow. And being okay with that, I think, is awesome, because it all just makes me happy. It's all great.
Yeah.
And we've had conversations about that, about like looking back at how we might have done some things and how they're doing things now, and been like, oh man, that's really cool to see the evolution of that, or to see the transition from going this way to that way, and the creativity and the innovation of we love seeing that. That's awesome. And we're always going to kind of like look back at it and be intrigued by that, because, everyone thinks differently. Everyone has a different idea of how you can make things best. And that's what makes it fun. And that's what makes it inviting for others to join too, because then they can bring their own, piece of the pie together and make sure it's the best it can possibly be.
Just one comment on there, and Jay, I'm sure you had a question. I think you mentioned aging out. It's a really fun concept. You can make jokes on it. I'm apparently not young anymore, all that, right? This is as close to a fraternity, or the concept of a fraternity, that you will ever see. Is there another event during the course of the conference where you're always saying, I've got to be there? And this is one of them. The YPN social specifically, right? And you obviously can't make everything YPN, but it's so fascinating. And we go there, and I definitely don't know if we should be there, but I do feel that I want to be there. I want to see it. I want to be a part of the energy. And you got people like Chris Nunes, who goes every year. He's never even been in the YPN, right? So it's such an interesting concept with the way that progresses. As you said, Maxime, it's a living thing, and it just keeps on continuing regardless. And the individuals who age out, they're still a part of it, right? They're always a part of it. And I'll guess, just to ask a quick question, I want you to be very honest with us. What do you feel like? What does it feel like when you see the old YPNers? Are you thinking, man, they shouldn't be at this social? What are these guys doing here?
Absolutely not.
We stay on the edge. We normally stay out of y'all's way.
Absolutely not. That's one of the things I completely think that it is some level of a fraternity, sorority. You're never not YPN. And I feel like there's no way to actually age out, because every grouping that's come through, they've had a hand in something. There are footprints that's all connected. And I think it's great. And I think it's really awesome because, again, sometimes that is the place, the YPN social, where I always, when I bring my staff and they haven't met specific individuals, that's where I'm just like, you have to make this. If you make anything, you're going to come to the YPN social, because it's not only the individuals that are in the same place in their career as you are now. You're going to meet other individuals that are where you want to be in 10 years. And this is your opportunity to meet them. It's not as imposing as running across them in the hallway, or like running into someone that you might want to talk to in a session. But hey, we're at the YPN social. Come hang out. We're chilling. And if it's someone like that, they're cool. You want to talk to them, let's go walk over there. Like I think, Jay, I think you said it earlier. I think you've all hinted on it, but it's like the vibe. it's just the perfect vibe for, I think, just for collaboration, for meeting individuals, like truly what a social is supposed to be. But to the heart of what YPN is, it's the best thing every year at NRPA, easily.
And you close. It's gotten so big that
Mhm.
I think I think there was a time we used to go to the retreat a lot, but over time, I was like, you know what, they're doing their business. I'm gonna step away from that. The meeting, they're doing their business. But you're right. This is something that everybody looks forward to. You hype it up, every year you hype it up so well to those individuals who are students or young professionals who maybe haven't been there before. It's like for my Disney fans out there, my Disney people, you got these four different parks and think of four different socials, right? The YPN is the Magic Kingdom of these socials. It is packed. There are lines for everything. I mean, you close down these places and you're not even officially renting it. It's not really officially being rented out for a social. You're just bringing any establishment that the YPN social goes to, they have to be either thrilled or terrified when they see the amount of people that we bring, or you all, and have brought to these events. It is truly a really great networking event.
Well, I'm gonna switch up topics a little bit, and I want to get to know you on a deeper level from the career path that you've taken. So when Tom mentioned 30 under 30, you weren't in Texas when you got that, and I think you were even maybe in between positions or in between states. So like, just talk a little bit about your growth and what positions you've had that have helped you get to where you are today, and what can you really account for some of that growth and those leadership roles that you've been able to take because of the different steps you've taken.
My trajectory career-wise has been a little bit different, and it kind of, so I think some of my answer is going to be like personal life stuff, and then also just like professional stuff. Where born and raised in South Florida, I come from a really small family. It's just my father passed away when I was really young, so it's my mom, older sister, younger sister. My mom came to the country from Haiti in like the early to mid 80s, and I was born in 92. So she came over here, started working and, wanted to give us a really great opportunity. And everything in my mind growing up, because my family, small family, only known Florida. I never really knew what I was going to do career-wise, college, any of that. But I was like, I know I'm going to broaden just the horizons of our family, and just go around. So I was just like, whatever the avenue is later on, whatever it is I'm doing, I'm going to make sure it's something I get all the opportunities and experiences to just see some of the world, see some of the states, and just set an example for the rest of my family of what America has to offer. And my career has been that. When I got my job in Asheville, I had never even heard of Asheville. I knew of North Carolina, but it was in the mountains and it looked cool. And I applied and I flew out there. And then the second time I'd ever been there was when I was moving there, packed my car up
That's
and
cool.
was there. And that was my first time in a leadership role, just running my own community center. But I think one of the most impactful leaps for me was my position in Arkansas, because it was one where the first time I've ever actually did the thing where you're like, you know what, am I qualified for this? This should be someone else. And then being like, actually, who cares? Like, what? I should not tell myself no. I'll let someone else do it, and end up getting that job. But it being a really, really impactful thing, just the leadership that I had at that moment. My director at the time, John Eckert, just put so much and poured so much knowledge and lessons into me because he wanted me to just go on in any pathway to do great. I've always wanted to continue to excel. So if there were opportunities for growth, to challenge myself more, to learn the next thing, I've never been afraid to throw my hat in the ring at all. And then I've also just been, I don't have a bunch of things where it's just like, not baggage, but it's like, I don't have like kids and a wife and all those things. I want those things, but I'm like, I want to just be able to do whatever and to advance my career in a hopefully quick amount of time, and just take on as many things as possible. And that's kind of how I ended up bopping around. But it's allowed me to gain all these different perspectives from under different people I've really, really enjoyed. Every place, every agency does things different. And it's been impactful to me, especially in my position now, since I've been here for 3 years, where, and Shane could, speak to it. Fort Worth is a very specific place, very specific organization. Things move fairly slowly, not because they don't want to move forward, but because why we got to go so fast? Like, let's chill out. But, and like me, I'm like, no, if like the future's right there, like, let's grab it. Let's like try and be leaders. Let's try and like push our staff, push ourselves for as much as we can. I forgot kind of what the initial question was there, Jay. I was kind of just going on, but
Love it.
No, you're good. It's just more wanting to get to know you a bit deeper on like what levels of positions and what helped you get to where you are today.
I think again, yeah, just being able to take those things on. So when I got my position and in Asheville, from Asheville, I had a staff of like 2. I was running my own community center, and then into Little Rock, I ended up having a staff of like 6 direct reports. I was a deputy director of recreation. It was a giant leap. I think the only difference for me literally was confidence. Actually, like true confidence and believing in myself. Because sometimes individuals, I talk to some of my staff members sometimes about things I'm pushing them for. I'm like, hey, I know you could do this. Hey, go get your certification. Hey, I don't care if your job is in another place that you're aiming for. I want to help you get there. I want to help you either take my job or get someone else's job or do whatever you need for your career path, life path. But confidence was my major thing. I think a lot of people like kind of deal with that where you doubt your own capabilities and what you do. And then sometimes, obviously, you have a support system, those YPN peeps or different individuals who are like, yeah, you can do that. Hey, you're great. You're awesome. And that has helped. Confidence and support have been, I think, 2 of the most important things for me professionally, because the work is things you learn through experience. You learn, you have your ideas, you try to innovate, you try and be proactive. But sometimes I think a lot of the things that are challenges are holding a lot of individuals back is sometimes internal, being able to reflect on those things. And I know that was a big thing, definitely for me.
We've talked about confidence a couple times on here, and I think it's funny that you said that you saw the confidence in the staff. And I feel like that's the very typical tenure of when that happens is we as supervisors will always have confidence in the staff that are doing the job. They may not have it. So it's the approach that we need to have as supervisors to make sure that they see the confidence that we have in them and that they can actually feel really understanding that, hey, like it's okay to not have it, but I have it in you. So go fly and flourish and do whatever it takes for you to understand that. And then, give them every step of the way, like whatever it takes to help them build that confidence.
Absolutely.
Speaking of the city and building confidence, I'd been in Fort Worth for 7 years. And
do they still? He talked about legacy. Does anybody talk about Shane around there?
Not one person. Well, maybe bad. No one says anything good about my time there. But Richard Zavala was my director. Richard Zavala was your director. Richard Zavala was a lot of people's directors. He was the director there for, I think, 30 years.
32 years. He started the job exactly a month before I was born. Yeah.
So Richard's been there a long time.
I told him that the first day I started my job, and he was very mad at me, but it's fine.
Yeah, that didn't go over well, I'm sure. So Richard been there for a long time, recently retired, was an academy member and had done a lot of stuff in the industry. And it was at his pacing in a lot of ways. And, all of us understand pacing, that sometimes it's at our pacing, sometimes it's at the city leadership pacing. And so I'm not saying it solely his pacing, but it was in the capacity he was allowed to work in for sure. But y'all just turned over a new director. That's a pretty high powered job, or at least a highly influential job as far as, where people see it. And what are the new things that are going on? Because culturally, I think anyone that steps in wants to make some changes. Even if they're internal, they want to do some things different. They want to, like we talked about earlier, put their stamp on a legacy. I've heard nothing but good things about this gentleman that stepped in. I don't know his name, but what's it like being in a spot where someone's trying to steer a boat in a different direction, whether it's a micro turn or a complete turnaround? Someone wants to say, this is now where we're going, and you're kind of a passenger on that, but you've got to get on board. You got to get your team excited. And there may even be something you don't agree with. Like, we've done it this way because we wanted to. I'm not asking for any of that today, but what's it like to be on with an organization that's now doing a pivot?
It's been fascinating recently. And the pivot is a big pivot because our longest running city manager of 10 years retired like a month or two before Richard did. So and then a couple,
which is unheard of in a big city, right?
Yeah. Just especially even lasting that long as a city manager is wild. But our assistant director of recreation retired a number of months ago as well. So it is multi-layered shifts that are taking place. I'll be honest, for me, because I am used to change due to I've been in different agencies. I'm used to change. I'm used to different perspectives. I'm used to going from 1 week working here. This is my philosophy to this. All right, learn the philosophy. How do I understand it? What's my perspective on it? And how do I relay that to staff? So personally, not to say like I'm too cool for school. The work is the work. The community is going to be there. How some of the things in the background, how they change and go, absolutely, completely is interesting. But for me, I'm used to being able to duck and dive and like find where I need to fit in. So, but there are other individuals where they're used, as you say, who have been here a longer time. They're used to a different set of things. And I think in my place, I try and talk to some of my peers at my level about some of my perspectives and feelings and maybe some things that are helpful to them. And with my staff, I try and engage with them and let them know how important it is to be like, what you do on your day-to-day shouldn't necessarily completely flip on its head, but are there changes that are coming that we hope can be more efficient, be more effective, and be more modern for what you need. But since I know how this is like, I'm very, very overprotective of my team, for sure. And it's filtering everything that's coming down in a way that's palatable to them and also giving them the reasoning behind it. I don't need you to agree. And I oftentimes agree or don't agree, but I want to make sure you understand. And I always want to make sure I understand why specific decisions or thoughts are made. I think the philosophical pathway of our department, it's right now in the midst of changing as we speak. But I think it's headed in the appropriate and right direction because I know I feel excited. And I think and there should be a little bit of fear, but because again, individuals fear change and that's totally understandable. And I've always been an individual where I'm just like, throw me into change or chaos and we'll figure out what it is, because sometimes you got to be in the thick of it to really know what your strengths or weaknesses are versus then waiting where everything's always kind of chill and calm. It's like, no, sometimes you got to shake things up.
And just to lay it out for everyone listening and both Tom and Jay, I mean, context wise, at one time, the Parks Department probably had 500 or 600 employees. I don't know if they have that many now or less or more. I know at times, I remember my first or second all employee parks meeting where Richard gave a state of the department. We were right next to the guys that did the cattle drive 3 times a day, even Christmas Day, Christmas morning. Those now I think they've gone over to a tourism section, but at one time there's cowboys and spurs sitting right next to people that are running camps. It was a very interesting dichotomy of service, of quality of life, public service. Because you've got people that are running a nature center and people that run museums. You got kids, like me coming out of college running camps, and you got a guy that literally drives steers up and down the downtown area of Fort Worth, the tourism side. And so it's unique, but within that organization, 350 to 500 people probably still, I guarantee I probably know maybe 100 or 85 of them because there's been stability in that organization. And Betsy Price was the mayor there for a long time, longer than most mayors. City manager had been there for a long time, longer than most city managers. Richard, 32 years. Sandra was the assistant director. She had been there, I guess, 28, 30 years herself. It feels like she had been there a long time. My first boss or one of my bosses is still there. Max's colleague, Sherry, had been there for a long time as well. I mean, had been so that there was just layers of infrastructure that people had been there for decades. And then for all of that to change and someone say, hey, this is where the goalposts are. Now we're moving to that, has got to be for the people that stayed, for the people that are still not to their point where they would like to retire or leave or whatever. Everyone's got a date in their head probably, but they're like, oh, wow, I don't know if I want to do all this. We've been doing this one thing, potentially that person's whole career. There's a lot of people in Fort Worth that they're a one department person. They've never worked anywhere else. They had not thought they would ever work anywhere else. They were going to stay there. And so I bet there is a lot of whiplash there, but it's also probably really exciting for those that wanted to see some sort of change, good, better, and different, wanted to see something different.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right. I mean, there's definitely a lot of whiplash, but I think it's okay because it's like we're all still here. And I think in the same way where it's just like there's so many things that could be learned by different perspectives, and being able to embrace those things is like for the betterment of us all. And I think that's where we're going.
Yeah, that's obviously, any kind of transition is going to be, it's going to affect and vary for how different people are experiencing it, right? But you mentioned that the city's still there. The services are still there. So let's go and dive into that. I want to talk a little bit about something that you're excited about. You had shared with me a great program that you're working on revamping, and it is the Fort Worth at Six program.
Right.
All
Yeah.
right. So tell us a little bit about that, what you're doing and what you've been kind of tasked to do and why you're excited about it.
Yeah, I'm excited because it's a program that has existed since 1992 within the city of Fort Worth, but in the recent years, it's kind of gone by the wayside. Not completely, but just the structure of it versus just like, sending in reports. This is what we've done. But it's just like, okay, but what's the tangible impact of what this is supposed to be? It's supposed to be a late night gang, or it started as a gang prevention initiative and program. And I've been tasked with like, all right, what is this fit for us today? All the, objectives and everything is exactly the same as what it was in 1992. So I have my committee and team together, and we've been revamping it. We've been going through and being like, what do we need today for the individuals who are either at risk youth in some of our communities and neighborhoods, whether it's a place to stay or life skills programs that they need to be involved in. And how do we better connect with those individuals? Because a lot of them are teen, and this program goes up to like 20, like individuals who are like in their early 20s. So anyone in a vulnerable spot that needs something, we want to be that solution, whether it's a place or X, Y, and Z. So in being able to deep dive into it, it's basically was like, hey, here you go, here's this program. And then kind of seeing that there was, I don't want to say nothing there other than like all the old stuff, but it was just like, okay, cool. It feels like starting from scratch on something. And obviously there we have our staffs and programs. So obviously there's recommendations sometimes, but it's at this point, I can't just be like, I want to create this specific program. I let my staff do the things, and it's like getting my own little thing again. My own, like, hey, this is your specific project to really start from the ground floor and see how you want it to impact individuals. So it's across 6 sites of our mini facilities here in Fort Worth. We have these facilities that are open a little bit later. One of my facilities, Chisholm Trail, is like open until 10 and 11, just to give individuals a safe place to go late at night versus just being out wherever in the neighborhood, but also be able to be like, hey, what do you guys want to do? We've done college tours with some of these kids. We've brought in individuals to speak on them with career, college readiness, and just also on mental health, physical health, different things of wellness. So, and as I'm sure you all know, tapping into some of the teens as well has been some of a tough thing that kind of occurs when it comes to programs to keep them engaged, but also stay kind of cool enough to you want to take a part in. So it's been an interesting couple of months in getting with the team that I have, my committees with those sites, and looking at what we're going to do. And like, I've had some really great meetings with like our some individuals in our school system. Had a meeting with a judge recently to see how we can get the courts involved with teen courts and using it as a deterrent versus like, hey, you might have to go volunteer somewhere, but what if we brought these kids versus them feeling like they're being punished? You get to participate in our program. This is still going to, capturing those at-risk participants, but making it something more positive versus a punishment. And also, I think, get the same outcome and bettering themselves. So it's been really cool and super fascinating. And it's a work in progress. And I think by the end of this year, I'll have something that'll be amazing.
Hopefully you can give us some updates in Orlando.
Absolutely.
Yes, it sounds great, and you said it best. It is such a tough nut to crack. That population, we all struggle. Mm-hmm. We've had some conversations, and actually, we got to get an update from Stacy Dickey on her project too, which is another Texas guest, but trying to positively impact individuals in that range. So, Maxime, we appreciate the time. I think we're going to transition, though, if you don't mind, into something we call rapid fire. Get some fun questions in there. We're going to throw some stuff at you.
Yes.
My first question for you is it's actually kind of twofold. It's a question for you and for Shane. So I found out that Fort Worth does something pretty cool for their staff members, right? And it's called the Fort Worth City Golf League. So, Shane, did this exist when you were there? Was there so it's for the employees, and the employees have this opportunity to be a part of a golf league during the middle of the week. What a great morale booster. And Maxime, what's the name of your team?
It's PARD, the Parks and Recreation Young Guns, because
Parks and Recreation Young Guns.
Yeah, so we have two Parks and Recreation teams. There was the older guys. That's like the team that like RZ is on. And then a couple of us wanted our own team. So we were like, yeah, let's do the young guns, some of the younger staff members we've gotten together. So it's been really good.
So that's a really cool thing. And you were telling me, even taking it to another level of really uniqueness. You're playing, you're matched up with a different foursome, right? Each week. So you could be playing with the other Parks and Rec individuals. You told me there's retirees who just still take part in it, which is pretty awesome. And you could be paired up with finance one week. And I love the concept of what you shared with me is a lot of times you might be called in the city manager's office and it's not a good thing. But in this case, you might be golfing with the city manager or with finance and just kind of shooting the breeze. And that's a good way. It's a possible way to leverage what you're doing. So my question, long-winded intro, my question, Shane, if that did not exist when you were there, would you partake? And then Maxime, my question for you is, how's your golf game?
Shane, they used to call me the Arnie Palmer. No, I'm just kidding. Arnie? I was just trying to get another nickname other than Beyonce. If they did it, I was not invited, and I would not have played. Golf is a terrible sport, and I get about 3 holes in, and I'm like, this is stupid. I have 15 more holes. Why are we doing this? So, no.
Shane
now,
alienated a lot of people.
Topgolf, that's fun, but I mean, what is it about golf? You've done I've putted 3 times. I've hit it, drove 3 times. I've had to look for my ball 12 times already. Like, how is this fun? It's 99 degrees. Humidity is 100%. And I've got 18 more. I've got 3 hours. Well, here's the thing. I don't hate my wife or kids enough to be a good golfer. That's I think what it is.
Yeah. No, I think your logic is a little skewed, a little off. Your answer was much longer than I was hoping. So, Maxime, how's your golf game?
My golf game is not that great. It's all right. I've played the last 3 years. Every year, I'm just like, give me an 18 handicap. I'm there for the vibes and the fun. It's just a good way to decompress for sure. I like it because it's during the week. It's not like on like a weekend thing. Like, I gotta wake up early, get a tee time. It's just like, okay, it's right after work on like on a Wednesday, and then we just go and just hang out, and then it's chill, and then you go back to your normal life. And also just I think going golfing is the only actually way where people are okay with people drinking and driving. That's the only place you can do it, and I feel like people really lean into that. Just saying.
Yeah, for sure. That's funny. I know we're not supposed to stay on food topic, but it's rapid fire. It's my question. I loved when I was in Fort Worth, some great places to eat down there. Now I've gone back since, and they've added Fort Worth's a really cool town of history. You got your cowboy, your history. You've got the cattle drive, but then you've got lots of great Mexican food and other really cultural flavors. What spot do you love? Because you've moved there as an outsider. What spot do you love to eat at in Fort Worth?
That's a great question. I have a lot of spots that I love. If I right now just was like my one like last meal, choose a spot, I'd probably choose Walloons, which is like this elevated Cajun seafood spot. They have great, amazing food, great brunch, incredible cocktails. It's just like a spot where it's located is where I hang out a lot, kind of like the hipstery kind of part of Fort Worth. And it's just randomly there. But it fits. And it's just a great time every time I go.
Sounds good. Sounds like you lost Shane, but you got Jay's attention.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'll go with you. Shane's probably never heard of it because it's seafood, but I will go with you any day of the week.
Perfect. And then Shane, there's an amazing place that has maybe the best burgers in town right now. Like literally you could walk there in 1 minute. So we could just bop around. It'd be fine.
Okay. Now we're talking. What's the burger place?
Gusto's.
Okay.
Yeah, if you remember anything of Fort Worth, it's like across the street from the chat room.
Oh, I don't know anything about the chat.
I don't think he's cool enough to be in the chat room.
Yeah.
No.
On a similar topic, what did you have a go-to hangout spot, restaurant, brewery in Asheville? I have some deep connections with Asheville, and I didn't know when you were there. Did you have a spot you were a regular at?
Favorite, it was right on the river, and they, for whatever reason, had this small little food truck that had the best tacos in Asheville. It was
Cool.
insane. And they also had the coolest brewery cat. During my time living there, you would always very friendly, super nice, but it would be the place a good majority of people would always go in town when the weather's nice. I only have amazing, great memories there.
That's awesome. That's a great spot.
Yeah.
Now, my geography and map in my mind, it may not be correct, everyone, but Jay has a map behind his head. So I'm going to try to use that. But you started in Florida, Maxime. You went up to Asheville, and then you zipped west, I think, right, to Arkansas and then into Texas. So you got that path. I think that's more staying in the South, but you had mentioned you wanted to experience as much as you could. I'm not saying that you're leaving Fort Worth, but is there a part of the country that you want to experience that you haven't experienced yet?
Part of the country that I haven't experienced that I want to experience. I haven't full on gone to the West Coast. Like I've been kind of going West Coast, but I've never visited. I've never like gone up that way as anything farther than Colorado. And just and then the first time I was in Colorado was past January. I went camping. So I would love to go like hiking and camping along the West Coast. I think it'd be beautiful and awesome.
Okay, similar question on that one is Texas. We had a great conversation with Stacy last time around. And is there an agency excluding Fort Worth, right? Fort Worth, let's assume Fort Worth is the best. You guys do great work. We get that. Is there an agency that you look to, though, for some ideas and inspiration in Texas?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, yeah, you can start with Louisville. You can start with the thing is there's so many places that do incredible things. And thankfully, I have friends that work in different places. So, yeah, it's like, hey, what is going on in Louisville? I have someone I can like tap into and be like, hey, how do you guys get this thing going? Or like sometimes you just want to look on the webpage because it's like, dang, I can't like these individuals. It feels like a competition. So it's like you feel great that they're doing cool stuff. But you're like, dang, I want to do better.
They beat us.
Yeah. So any of those, honestly, in the DFW, I mean, Grapevine, Arlington, you have Louisville, they do incredible stuff. All the way up in Denton, they're doing really incredible stuff. I mean, you go to San Antonio, you talk about, New Braunfels and some of these smaller places, Shirts, obviously. There are a lot of places. And honestly, what I like to tell my staff is like, think broad and look broad. So It doesn't have to be just here. I try to like tap into different agencies again, because I worked in some different places. I always tap back into different staff members that and peers from previous places I've been. And then again, when you go to conference, you meet people from everywhere. Yeah. So now I'm like, I need to look up this place's website just to see how they, do things programmatically or, and how they market or how they do X, Y, and Z. So there's not one specific one. And even if there was, I wouldn't give them the credit. But
I just love that
Jay and I are thinking the same thing.
I was going to say, I think Tom and I, but yeah, I love that you named about 20, but didn't name Pflugerville.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, Shane's legacy is just, he talked a lot about legacy, but Fort Worth seems to have forgotten that he worked there.
No, his legacy is again, because it's known they're doing incredible things. But again, I don't want to give the immediate credit because he's right here, but they're doing awesome things. We're doing great things.
I don't know. We know a lot of staff around Texas, and including staff from Louisville and Grapevine and New Braunfels and Shirts and all these other great cities. Yeah. So just keep it at that.
You know what? Do me a favor, Maxime. Do not say the word Pflugerville because Hannah will take that and AI edit she'll add it in the list. So just don't say the word. We all got this on record.
So it'll be a cut that is like Pflugerville is the Michael Jordan of Parks and Recreation.
That's right.
You've heard it here. That's the only piece that's going to stay. Your answer to that question now is just going to be Pflugerville is the Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Done. We said we weren't going to talk sports, but I got a sports question. You've lived all over.
Yes.
Are you a Florida sports fan? Who are your teams?
Obviously, I have to shout out my Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
Edmonton Oilers. It's about to be a rematch. Same show. We're getting 2 in a row, baby. Let's do it. My Miami Hurricanes. Let's go, Carson Beck. Take us to the promised land. Let's do it. Miami Heat. Come on. Can't go wrong with the Miami Heat. Let's do it. And then Miami Dolphins. Letting me down for a long time, but it's fine because we have hockey now. So, but
Nice.
Still, they're there. And then, and Shane, you might like this. Just as a random aside, because there's all those teams, and then my one team is Everton, which people are like, why Everton? When I think it was 2006 was the World Cup. There was a World Cup in 2006. I think it was like
Landon Donovan.
It was that World Cup. I'd never watched soccer. It was that summer. I had nothing to do. I was like, this is on TV. It was on every channel. I watched it and I was like, this is the greatest sport ever. Because I'd never given time. And then I was like, I need to follow a team. And I looked up soccer teams that used to be good, but are now really bad. And it gave me Everton. And that has been my team since I was like, however old I was in 2006. So, yes.
I love it. I love a good Evertonian. Listen, soccer will teach you more about disappointment than anything else in the world and how to handle it.
Yes. And how to embrace your small little wins.
That's
Your
right.
Small wins
Absolutely.
mean the most. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like when you tied Liverpool the last time y'all would ever play them in your stadium.
A draw is a win sometimes. Shane, you and I talked about that off air.
Right.
Well, I had a great time. Maxime, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us on RecLess. Guys, we're going to let Maxime go, and we are looking forward to catching up with you in Orlando.
Absolutely. Just as a final word, thank you guys for what you do. I think this podcast is really important, and even beyond the podcast, what each of you put into the industry and to the individuals that work within the industry is really important. And I'd be saying that, whether you have the podcast or not, it's an amazing ripple effect. And I feel like I've been affected by it, and a lot of others have. And I think so many of us want to replicate that level of impact. So kudos to you guys. You guys have a fantastic Friday, and go Panthers.
Yeah, go Panthers. Unfortunately, Stacey Anaya is a Dallas Stars fan, and I had a little Stars in me too, but back to back.
That's 4 Western Conference Finals they've lost in a row, really bad. But last year I was rooting for them because I wanted Panthers to beat them there. I was rooting for them this year. They didn't make it. Maybe next year, most likely not. Sorry, Stars fans.
I appreciate it.
You
Thank you for the kind words. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Max.
It's got a lot of energy, man. You talked about we talked about that positivity of that group. The positivity of him in general, right? He's smiling all the time, and that is contagious.
Yeah, I think, and he talked about it in a few different areas of just the perspective of, especially with like dealing with change and then like being a positive role model for that, for those that might be going through change in an agency or in a program that, you can look at it through a different lens, but he wants to be positive with it. And hopefully his team sees that and they can be positive through his lens.
No, he's a bright young star for sure in our industry. And you feel his impact as soon as he walks into a room. Has got this real high energy, and he's done a lot of great things with that group. And I'm excited to see where all those folks go, where they all ultimately land up and all the impact that they have.
Yeah, it's great. And I really enjoyed the conversation. I don't want to keep going on with this, but Shane, I hope we didn't make you feel bad when I asked him the question and he didn't say Pflugerville. I mean,
that was great.
I asked him not to say it. Now Hannah could definitely use that soundbite in your favor, but I now know that I have to quality control a little bit better than I have been.
You got to.
Because you guys are going to mess with it. You're going to mess with the tapes.
Well, all joking aside, I mean, there are some incredible agencies in Texas.
Absolutely.
So it is very hard to pick one. And I know we talked about it last week, but like the gold medal is a prime example of that. You have 3 out of 4 municipalities in one of the populations that are going for that. So it's like, man, they're just putting out some amazing things.
Something in the water.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's just a lot of competition up there too,
Yeah.
that DFW area for sure.
Well, guys, we got one next week. Are we back?
I think so.
I think so.
All
I'm in
right.
2 weeks. I don't know about
Okay.
next week. I'm in 2 weeks.
I could be back to back. I don't even know. I'll
Oh,
have to
it's me.
check. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's me. Yeah, we're
All
good.
right. We got another Shane. So we're gonna go third Texan in a row, probably.
There you go. Now we're
The odds
talking.
are there. Well, I enjoyed today, guys. I appreciate your time and glad we got to get this one in. Everybody else, we'll see you next time on RecLess.
See ya.
Later.
Follow RecLess Podcast on YouTube for more content and outtakes. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow along on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for news and exclusive clips. RecLess Podcast is edited and produced by Hannah Mize. Thanks for listening. See you next time.